Well, this is fun. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight. This is a day that we have been looking forward to for a very long time. One of the reasons that we are meeting several weeks before our public grand opening is so that we can work out little glitches. You may have noticed that our air conditioner didn't know what time to come on. We turned it on 10 minutes ahead of time. It was supposed to be set automatically. These are just the kinds of things. I'm using the pulpit mic tonight because the wireless mic wouldn't come all the way up. These are the kinds of things that we have to work out. And I have one huge regret. The same clicker. Those of you who have been to Johnson Street over the last 10 years know that I have a combative relationship with this clicker. But I think this is for my humility. Actually, I have been using it for 10 years, and it turns out 5 minutes before service tonight, I didn't know how to use it. I got instructions, and so perhaps the problem was not the clicker, perhaps the problem was the clicker. So that may have been. I love the reading that we began with tonight. This morning, the topic was never forget. Tonight, it's never quit. We have made an enormous commitment to bringing the gospel and the love of Christ to this part of this community. We have spent a great deal of money and given a great deal of ourselves, because that's really what money is. Money represents work that we have done and that others have done in order to bring this to pass. And so every bit of what you see around you has part of you in it because you had a part of bringing this to pass. And this enormous commitment is only worthy if it is in service of one great purpose. That is to follow Jesus and to help others to do the same. And we must have a resolve that we will follow that path, that we will help others to acknowledge that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, as you heard Michaela do this morning. What a fitting ending to our time of worship in that particular facility. But the cost of following Jesus is very plain. He comes first in every part of our lives as individuals, as parts of this congregation. He comes first in the life of this congregation. He is Lord of heaven and earth, and the only way that the sinful world around us is going to know that is if they see him being Lord of us. So never quit putting the Lord first. Jesus put it this way in Luke chapter 14 and verse 26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Jesus spent a lot of time running people off. He did. When the crowds got too big, and he knew because he is the Son of God that there were people just following to see miracles or to get fed, he had a way of saying difficult things that made them understand that the path they had chosen was not a free meal. It was to give up their lives. And here he says it very plainly. The Lord comes before everything, comes before father and mother. I love my father and mother. My dad is here tonight. My mother is in the hospital. I would do anything for them. Jesus is saying to us, whatever you would do for them, you must be prepared to do more for me. Every human relationship comes behind our commitment to Christ. Now, the way things work in the Lord, if Jesus comes first, everyone else is better off. If Jesus is Lord of my life, my parents, my wife, my sons, everyone else in my life is blessed because Jesus is first. And if he quits being first, I cannot bless them as I am when he is. But he must be first. Jesus himself put God above his own family. One of the most tragic events in all of the Gospels, in Matthew 12, verses 47 through 50, Jesus had been carrying on his ministry while carrying on his place as the leader of his family. And his younger brothers and sisters decided that they had put their mother through enough, that they were tired of not knowing when they were going to be able to stop and eat next. They were tired of moving from town to town. And they decided that if Jesus was going to follow this path, that he could no longer have this responsibility as the eldest son in his home. And so, after one such incident, his mother and his brothers came. I do not believe his mother was complicit in this. I think her heart was broken, as any of yours would have been. But they came, and standing outside, and sought to speak with him. And he answered, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers." If to be the head of his home meant that he had to abandon his ministry, the choice had already been made. Now, this is not an easy thing to teach in our society, where the church is supposed to make us better at whatever else we already wanted to do. The church is supposed to serve to make us have easier lives, better marriages, better families. And if the Lord has his way with us, it will. But it only works if Jesus is first. If there is any human relationship that you would leave Jesus for, then you are not truly a follower of Jesus Christ. Jesus would not accept your offer to serve him unless he is absolutely first. This is the hard edge of the gospel. Jesus did not apologize for it. He had to be first, or he wasn't Lord at all. He also said that if you want to serve him, you have to be prepared to die. He meant this literally. He meant you must be prepared to lose your life. And the teachings on this matter have not changed in 2,000 years. Luke 14:27 says, "Whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Now, bearing the cross is not wearing a cross. I have no objection to you wearing a cross as long as it is a symbol to you of your commitment. But bearing a cross is something that is done by a person who is on their way to die. If you take Jesus at his word and you bear your cross, you're offering him your life every day. The people of his time understood this. Bearing the cross was not the everyday troubles of life. It was a death sentence. 4 miles from Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, there was a little city called Sepphoris. There was a Roman garrison there. It was a center of Roman army activity, much like Capernaum was. And an insurrection had been led that was referred to later in the book of Acts by a man named Judas the Galilean. And that rebellion was put down in the most brutal imaginable way. The Romans found every conspirator and every member of their family going both ways, their parents and grandparents, as well as their spouses and children and grandchildren, and they crucified them all. According to Josephus, more than 2,000 crosses were left on the roads going in and out of Sepphoris in order to say this is the price of not putting Rome first. Jesus was alive at this time. He would have been a small child. Everyone who heard him speak about bearing the cross would have known exactly what they meant. They knew what a cross was for. We need to learn. A cross is for dying. And when we come to follow Jesus, we agree that our lives are now lost for his purpose. If we live another day, we die to ourselves. If persecution comes and no other choice is possible, we die for him. This is why we never give up. If there's anything or anyone that would stop you from following Jesus, then you are not a follower of Jesus. You may be a church member, you may be a good person, you may do many good things, but if there is anything that would draw you away from Christ, he wouldn't say you're his. What about us? Now, most of us will not face death, at least not in the immediate future. It does happen still in our world. I believe it is likely to happen again in the next few generations. But what about those of us who don't face a bullet or a sword? How do we bear our cross? Jesus explains it in Luke 9:23 and 24. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. The cross is your readiness to die, your willingness to die, your decision to die to yourself. It's something that can be done every day. If the cross was to be used, that would be the last day you did it. But every morning you take it back up again. And he explains, whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. The great paradox of following Jesus is, if you expect him to make everything better, don't start. If you expect him to require of you what no one else deserves to ask, then you're on the right track. Because you see, if you don't spill your blood for Jesus, you're still dying for him if you're living for him. You die for whatever you live for. It happens one day at a time. We sing a song sometimes from Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. It says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. The daily cross means today is his. Every hour, every meal, every expenditure, whether it's of money or of effort, it all is done as a sacrifice to him. This is why we must never quit. We're not just building a nice little church here. We are taking our part of the world for Christ, and that will only happen if he has us. The first disciples understood this. They were persistent. They would not quit. In Acts chapter 4, verses 19 and 20, they said, we cannot keep but speaking of what we have seen and heard. That was when they were threatened with beatings and death. Say all you want to, they said to the authorities. We can't keep from doing what the Lord has asked us to do. In Acts chapter 5, verse 29, they said, we must obey God rather than men. And we may well be called upon, and in small ways we already are, to do the same thing. Some of our brethren in Clay County, Missouri, in 1864 were occupied by Union forces who declared martial law. And that martial law included forbidding Christians to attend services on the following Sunday. The Liberty Church of Christ was there. It had once been preached to by Moses E. Lard, if you know your restoration history. But in 1864, Dr. W.A. Morton was the preacher, and immediately after receiving the public notice that the Union General was not going to permit movement on the streets on Sunday, he immediately sent word out and back with his members who had come to hear the pronunciation. He told them, we are meeting this Sunday, no matter what the general said. And come service time, it wasn't as big of a service as it had been. But one, by dozen, by 20s, the members of the Lord's church came. And the house was filled more than anyone would have expected that it would be. The Union soldier realized that he was facing a commitment that was greater than fear of martial law. So he granted the Liberty Church of Christ, and only the Liberty Church of Christ, the right to meet again the next Sunday. And when others who had not been there on the first Sunday of civil disobedience, when others sought to go, the Union soldiers said, if it wasn't important last Sunday, it's not important this Sunday, and sent them home. If you take up your cross and follow Jesus, no one and nothing will get in your way of doing what the Lord wants you to do. Things must be left behind. Luke 14:33 says, "Whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple." Now, what does forsake mean? Does that mean open your wallet, dump out your purse, empty your pockets of change and leave it on the floor? Or does it mean put your money and your possessions at the service of the Lord just like you do everything else? Well, Jesus answers that question in Luke 16:13 and 14. He says, "No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon," and that means money. If you find yourself saying, "I know I ought to, but I can't, or I won't, or I have plans," when the Lord has first call on your resources, then you haven't settled this issue yet. You're a servant with two masters. You haven't made up your mind if Jesus is Lord or not. When Jesus is Lord, these decisions make themselves. And you don't go home in poverty. You don't sell things that you and your family need. You don't do without the necessities that the Lord has provided you. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8 says, "If anyone does not provide for his own, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." We have a responsibility to provide for our needs and the needs of others. The Bible is abundantly clear on that. But the first call on all of our resources belongs to the Lord of heaven and earth. It may just be a legend. I haven't been able to confirm it. But when Robert E. Lee was baptized, he had taken off his sword, his military insignia, and all of the other apparatus of his office. And he was about to step into the water when one of his lieutenants said, "General Lee, you still got your wallet in your pocket." And according to the legend, he said, "It needs baptizing most of all." Now, this facility is a testament to the fact that there are many people here who understand that the Lord has first call. It's not the church, it's not the elders, it's not the preacher, it's the Lord himself. But if he doesn't have your wallet, he doesn't have you. If he doesn't have his family, your family, he doesn't have you. If he doesn't have your time, he doesn't have you. If you are more afraid of people than you're in love with Jesus, then he doesn't have you. Never, ever, ever, ever quit making Lord Jesus the Lord of your life. The Pharisees didn't like this. They were lovers of money. They had elaborate means of self-deception by which they said, "Oh, it doesn't really mean that." They could hide their money and pretend that they had given it to the Lord. And they despised Jesus because he was very plain about this. But the Lord of heaven and earth, who's the giver of every good and perfect gift, says, "You are mine and your stuff is mine. And I get first call." Because you see, the kingdom costs everything. It's not a question of have you given enough. Enough is everything. In Matthew 13, verse 44, Jesus compared the kingdom of heaven to a treasure hidden in a field. And then he describes the price of it. He says, "A man found it and hid it, and for joy over it he went and sells everything that he has and buys that field." So what's the cost of following Jesus? Well, using the same analogy that Jesus did, I want you to imagine that a man approaches the owner of the field, thinking that he's going to put one over on him. And he says, "How much for that field?" Nonchalantly, thinking to make a good deal. And the man says, "Well, how much do you have?" And he's thinking, this is not the way negotiations for fields are supposed to go. So he says, "Well, I'll go get by on the cheap. I've got that chariot over there." Okay, good, you've got a chariot. Do you have horses to draw it? Well, yeah, but they're Oh, so you have a barn. Okay, I'll take the barn. Well, but then where would we go from the house to get our horse? Oh, you have a house. You see where this is going? It costs you everything. The kingdom of heaven is worth your time. It is worth your relationships. It is worth your commitment to yourself. It is worth your money. It is worth your possessions. It is worth your leisure time. And if you will not put everything ahead of the Lord of heaven and earth and the kingdom which alone can save us for eternity, then Jesus plainly would say, you are not yet his disciple. We live in times in which it is very possible to be a good church member and only a passing nod of a disciple. If you want to follow Jesus, you must take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow him. And if you're ready to give up everything that you cannot keep, to receive everything that you cannot attain for yourself, then Jesus is the only way. If you're not yet a Christian tonight, we may have to use that baptistry again because this one doesn't have any water in it yet. And it may be that if this is your night to say, Jesus gets all of me starting now, then we'll make the journey. Most all of us will go. We will hear your confession. We will witness as you too join Jesus in his death, burial, and resurrection. And it would be our joy to help you. Or if you'd like to say to the Lord in front of all of us tonight, I finally get it, I'm yours. Nothing is held back. Then we'll pray with you and help you and encourage you to make that a reality as well. Would you come now while we stand and sing together?